Hi there, how are you all? I trust that you are well. Of course, this is Mischa. Thank you so much for joining me again for Courageous Conversations. Today I'm talking with Mr. Paul Coates, the founder of Black Classic Press in Baltimore, Maryland. We're going to talk about his love for books, why books are important, some of his favorite authors, and also his son, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Let's hear what he has to say. Wow. Thanks, Mr. Coates, for taking some time to talk to me. Like you, and I've said this to you offline, but I don't mind saying it publicly. You are absolutely one of my favorite people on the planet. And one of the reasons that is true is because you're one of the steadiest people I know. I mean, every time I have experienced you, you are always steady. And I know, you've told me about Landmark.
Yeah.
And I imagine that has contributed, to your steadiness.
I'm
I'm
sure.
also happy to say that, we've had some time to be together because Black Classic Press has printed
Mhm.
21 of my books.
Really, Mischa? That many? Goodness
21, Mr.
gracious,
Coates, it's
gracious,
21 books that you all have printed.
gracious,
And
gracious.
when I
Wow.
was trying to get started in writing or becoming an author, and I was calling around because that's what people tell you to do. You call around and you try to get with a big publisher, you try to find a literary agent. And of course, that didn't work. And then I read about Elon Harris and how he self-published and he
Mm-hmm.
sold books out of his trunk, and he advised people to not give up on their dream to publish. And that's when I learned about Black Classic Press. And you all were so warm and welcoming to me, despite the fact that I was a nobody and didn't have a following or a brand name. But you were willing to help me, which takes me back to just the introduction of how you founded Black Classic Press now 42 years ago in 1978. And you say that, the goal was to publish and reprint obscure, and I like that you're very specific about obscure and significant works by and about people of color. And preparing myself to talk to you, I didn't know this. I learned that there were three gentlemen who really inspired the idea along with you to start Black Classic Press.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. John Jackson, John Henry Clark, and you call him Dr. Ben. I wanted to know, when did you fall in love with books? What happened? How old were you when you decided that not only you love books, but you wanted to take your love for books to help empower Black people?
Yeah. Okay. So those are two different ones, Mischa,
Okay.
because the love for books is like, the love for books is like when you love a man or you love a woman. You know what I mean? Like you don't really know.
When it happened?
You don't know that you it's just like when you look back or when you're threatened with the loss of it, it
Ah.
occurs to you, damn, I really love this. This is essential and important to
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
So I think as a child, I just accepted that I had books and I had access to books all the time. I don't think I had a particular love affair with books.
Okay.
I just, like a man and a woman, I just took it for granted. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
that I would have it and it would always be there and
Do
all
you
that kind of
remember what was the first book that really kind of sparked like something in you, or the first
no,
book that
no.
don't remember
No,
that?
I really don't. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Probably my earliest memory of a book is with the Bible,
Mm.
probably with the Bible. And that was because I used to impress my father when I was like maybe about 6 or 7 years old or something. I used to, when I was first learning to read, I would use what I was learning and apply it to the Bible. And then I would stagger through it and memorize some of the things that I, was reading in the Bible. And my father would carry me around to show people how smart his son was,
Hey now.
And who doesn't want to be um, displayed by their father?
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Who is that? No, I wanted to be displayed. So that probably is the earliest book, but I certainly remember books before that. I remember loving the books that I had in school, the primary books that I had in school, Dick and Jane and
Yeah.
all of those. I had an affinity with those. And then early on, um, as a youngster, um, I used to roam the halls of the libraries in my city, which is Philadelphia. So I don't, as a matter of fact, I don't know. The things that stand out that I used to love to read was National Geographic, the popular mechanics, popular science, those types of things more so than books. And then I guess books cover to cover,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
later.
Yeah. And so in the 70s, though, fast forward, you started to sell books, right?
I sold books, Mischa. This goes back to the other part that you were saying. So I didn't come to books, and I came out of the Black Panther Party,
Mm-hmm.
and in coming back from the Panther Party, there was this feeling of being lost and what have you,
Okay.
because I didn't know what I would do,
Mm-hmm.
and I had people who were in jail
Mm.
because I when I left to go to California, I had people who were in jail, and I came back and felt responsible for them. I got with them, and we built, I built a prison program that had the three components to it. Now I don't know whether you crossed that or not, but it had three components to it. The very first component was that we wanted to start, and I wanted to start a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And the bookstore was really a means of getting books back into the jails so that we could continue the work of education. And that's what I love about the Black Panther Party. And this gave me a means of continuing to do that work, educating the masses in the street, educating the masses who were incarcerated in jail, giving rebirth to those brothers and sisters who were in jail, and bringing them back into the streets so they could give rebirth to our community. That was the ideal, okay? And that's why I started selling books, to build that. Um, the other part of that program, the first part was the bookstore. The second part was a publishing company that would publish books to be sold in the bookstore and sold in other bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
A publishing company that would focus on dealing with books that affected Black people's consciousness about themselves, and consequently be the food that people would use for this resurrection. And then the third part was the printing company
Yeah.
that would actually print the books so that the publishing company would not have to depend on white people for the
Mm.
resources that we needed to uplift our own community.
Mm.
So the printing company was like a full circle.
Yeah.
And in that full circle, it was I envisioned it that we would be able to employ people, that we would be able to generate money to, keep things moving. And we would be able to publish stuff to be able to put out that would have a national and international impact on our communities, and particularly the Black community. It
Mm.
didn't turn out fully that way, but those three parts of the program, um, I did participate, and I did create those three parts.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
bookstore was a financial challenge from day one, and I closed that
How long was that
shortly
open book for?
after we started it. I started it in 1972. I closed it the same year I went away to graduate school. Well, it closed actually in 1978, which was the same year I started publishing.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
And then
was
I
it
went
that
away to
it was
graduate school in 79.
was it that it was going to be too much to do both, or like you said, because it just wasn't as
It was a financial challenge, and it was what I had envisioned, the ideal that I had envisioned was not working out at all.
Mhm,
Um, I had envisioned it more as a community program,
mhm.
and that part never took place. It was a part that I funded literally out of pocket by beg, borrowing, and stealing. Um, I used to do book displays in different parts of the country. That's how I got to Howard University. I used to do because we had a bookstore on North Avenue, and then we had a bookstore on Park Heights Avenue in Baltimore, and we could never get enough people in the door to pay the rent. So I'd have to take books out. And
Mm.
one of the places used to spend a lot of time was Howard University. I used to take books over there and sell, and that began my relationship with Howard.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
wow. And as you said, well, you said, and then the printing of it all came, and you all did not just printing of new books, but you did reprints of older books as well.
Well, that's where the focus, yeah, actually, um, in envisioning a publishing company, I didn't have a vision of what we would do. It
Mhm,
was just going to be books about Black people to inspire Black people.
mhm,
As I continued to be engaged with books, as I continued to learn about books, as I continued to learn about the work of those three elders that you pointed out,
mhm, mhm.
it became clear that there was a body of information that the ancestors before me had written.
Mm.
And they had written it in defense of Black people, and they were not necessarily a part of the same army, but they were a part of the same united front, in the sense that they understood that if we educate Black people about themselves, we can bring about a transformation that'll
Mm.
never be stopped. You see,
Mm.
if we tell people who they are, then
Yes.
they won't forget who they are.
Mm.
So that work was already there. People going back as far as David Walker and before David Walker, and David Walker's appeal becomes one of the cornerstones of the Black Freedom Movement. A
Okay.
lot of people don't understand that, but in 1829, there's very little that is being said today that David Walker didn't
Wasn't
say in
already saying.
1829.
Wow.
There's very little,
Wow.
very, very little. David Walker tells us that we have to stop following and stop trying to ape white people.
Mm.
Stop working in the interests of white people, work in the interests of our own community. Stop going to school simply to, to be close to white people. Bring that education back and put it in your community. Build businesses in your community. Be of service to your community. Get rid of the traitors in your community.
Mm.
And if you are struck, strike back. David Walker becomes the foundation for Nat Turner. People don't understand that.
Wow.
You know, why does Nat Turner say we got to kill them all? He
Mm.
says we got to kill them all because David Walker says that literally 7, 8 years before. I'm sorry, I'm saying 7, 8 years. Actually, Nat Turner's 1831 is 2 or 3 years before. He he says that. That's why they put a price on David Walker's head, because David Walker's pamphlets were circulating all through the slave South.
Mm.
And Nat Turner is someone who responded, most people believe, responded to David Walker's appeal. It
Wow.
made sense. They try to make him this messianic figure and whatever. No, it's a brother. It's a little, it don't make sense doing this, you know? Let's be free. But that literature and so much more literature was there. And my job was to collect it into a body, to shape it into a body of literature so that anytime you touch one of those books, it was going to blow your mind. You
Wow.
see? And that's what Black Classic Press, that's why I focused on reprints. I didn't have a vision initially, but once I decided to focus on reprints and I talked with people like Dr. Ben, talked with people like John Henry Clark, talked with people like John G. Jackson, these were the old folks. I mean, they knew the old literature and they knew what had shaped their consciousness. And they began to suggest things that I should publish.
And
And
that's
I
what
brought,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, some things I brought to them, some things they weren't aware of, but they certainly could evaluate and make clear, you know, that it was essential for those things to be published. In many cases, they volunteered to write the introductions for the books.
Yes,
You know?
yes, I was going to say that. Absolutely. And see, this is what I love about books and writing is that, and I say this to people all the time, it gives us an opportunity to leave something behind because there's so much we would not know except for the fact that it's written, that story is left for us. I have so many questions about all of the things that you just said. Let me hold myself together. What would you say has been most meaningful to you in terms of the work that you've been able to do to keep our stories alive and to really, really, as you said, just give us some food for our souls? What has been most meaningful for you?
The most meaningful thing to me in terms of the work, the most meaningful thing for me has been building the printing company. Okay. Like that's a hard one, okay, because I love the publishing company, right?
Right.
But if I thought about what is most significant, I think anyone could have built, anyone that knew some history and focused in a committed kind of way could have built the publishing company. I think anyone could have printed the books I print. I don't feel the same way about the publishing. The book publishing, do you know there are no other Black book publishers in this country? Do you know that
No.
there have not been any other Black book? I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
Printing. Printing.
Black book printers. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Black book printers in this country. The large thing that separated our community and the large thing that kept that from happening was that the equipment that you used to have to deal with and the people you needed to run a printing company that printed books was massive. It was cash intensive. And so it wasn't something easy to go into. We had Black print shops, but the capacity to turn out a book and bring a book together, we didn't have that and we don't have that. Early on, going back to probably about 1905, there was a National Baptist Publishing House in Nashville, Tennessee. Some remnants of that still exist. Those folks used to print books. Black folks used to print books and publish books and distribute them all over the country. 1905. We haven't had that since then.
Wow.
So to build it today was an act that, as far as I'm concerned, that the ancestors guided. You have no idea that when we put that equipment together, when I began to first publish books, I had $300 $300. When I first began publishing books, I borrowed the $300. I
Wow.
borrowed I borrowed $100 from a sister who has gone on in transition, and I borrowed $200 from a brother. And I shouldn't say I borrowed, they gave it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I treated it as a loan, but they gave it to me because they were excited about the idea that I wanted to publish books. And I could buy a printing press that was for $300.
Mm.
But that was like a mimeograph machine.
Wow.
When it came time to really launch BCP digital printing, the equipment was north of $300,000.
Really?
And I was broke. I was broke. Do you know those people, the people that put that equipment in Xerox, never asked for a down payment, never even ran a credit check on me? You know,
Wow.
I mean, and if they had asked for a down payment, there's no way that I could have given them any money. If
Talk
they had
about
run a
the
credit check
ancestors
on
being
me,
on your side.
that's the ancestors. That's the ancestors. You know, some folks would say it's God. I say it's the ancestor. It doesn't matter. There was, and there is something there.
Mm.
Michelle, I can tell you story after story.
Yeah.
All those books that you printed with us, probably every time you printed a book with us, Xerox was banging on our door, trying, trying to get their equipment. So to be able to sustain that, and keep it as a resource, a singular resource in our Black community, and to make it available and have it available so that when Black folks who didn't want to go to white folks, for whatever reason, they didn't feel comfortable, they had a place of comfort to come and still do to get there. I think that's kind of significant. I do think that's kind
Absolutely.
of significant. And when you combine the two, when you combine the printing and the publishing, the use of literally state-of-the-art equipment and technology to produce those books, I think I think there's a significance there that
I've seen the equipment. I've been in the room and I'm just like looking around and thinking, how do they do this? And it, as you
Mhm.
said, it's massive and it's amazing to actually see a book go from a manuscript to bound and all of that process that you all do. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Does it feel like it's been 42 years? This year is 42 years for you? Does it feel like
Now
it's
it
been
does.
40?
Now it does. Yeah, yeah.
Really?
It feels like I've been doing this a long
A
time.
long time. Um,
I've actually, in talking with people, I had to go back and remember. I actually have been engaged with um, the publication of books, pamphlets, the sale of books and pamphlets for 50 years. Okay, for 50 years. Because in the Black Panther Party, I sold books. You know, that was part of the way that we made our money.
mhm.
I sold books. I used to buy books and I sold books. That's why it was comfortable to me when I came out of the Black Panther Party to open a bookstore.
Mm.
See, because I had some knowledge of it. So that period goes back to 1970. You're talking about 50 years now, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanna talk specifically. I ran across this video. It was so exciting. During one of your anniversaries, I believe it was your 35th anniversary, you were introducing Walter Mosley.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you tell the story about how this big publishing company wanted him to publish with them. And he said, no, I'm going with Paul Coates at Black Panther Press.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
there was the issue of the money of it all. And he said, I don't care if we have to stand on a corner.
Mhm.
Paul Coates and Black Classic Press is going to print this book. And then, you talk about how the money of that deal, you all made some money, but the money is gone. But you said there were some lessons that remained, and you talked about him being a wonderful friend to you. Um, Tell us about that friendship and what have you learned most from your friendship with Walter Mosley, who is a world acclaimed author and of himself,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah. So Walter is without question my favorite author. without question. And it's that he's a writer, but like author is speaking to his person, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he writes and there is a person here. So he's the type of brother that throws down, you know, like it's not like he's going to say something to me and then we go into the room with the white folks and he sees something else, you know. So in that case, he was with his publisher at the time. And Walter was making, I mean, you know, he's making his money with these people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so for him to stand them down and say no, what they were trying to do was take over the publishing.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to relegate me in some capacity where they managed the process. And what Walter was saying was, no, you're not going to do that. You have money and you could help him do this, but you got to do it on his terms. If you don't want to do it on his terms, you're not going to do anything with this book because I wanted him to gain the experience of publishing this book. At that time, and even now, I don't know that there were Black publishers that had the experience of taking a book from conception and selling that book all over the world. You know, getting the book created and literally selling rights to that book in Germany, selling rights to that book in Spain, selling rights over here. It was a massive thing for this successful author to say he wanted me to have that experience because he believed that someone in the Black community, in the independent publishing community, should have that experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Should have that experience. So that's what. So he went to war with them, and as it turned out, he ended up leaving that company.
Wow.
Because he didn't really, you know, he wrote one more book with him or something, and he left them. Um, so the large lesson of that is that there are people of principle, you know, like we think about ourselves, we're not the only people in the world with principle. There are other people with principle. And he's demonstrated that over the last 25 years. Like you said, the money was gone, Mischa. The money was gone. Before that book was published, I had spreadsheets, I had everything going, and I knew which way the money was going to go. Before the book was published, the money was gone.
Mm.
Okay, it was gone. It
Wow.
was gone. We had already charted it out. So literally, when the money came in and the money was gone, what was left was Walter's friendship.
Wow.
And he's been my friend and I hopefully have been a great friend to him as well for the
Amen.
last 25 years, you know?
Amen. Wow. I read
So
that
the
and I thought,
friendship was more important than the money. I mean, that's the big
that's,
takeaway. The money you got today, but you're going to spend it to pay bills, it's going to be gone.
that's right. That's right.
Nurture the friendship, you know?
Wow. And if it's nothing for me to say, like you said, I think that we should certainly take away the value of friendship from that story. And I think sometimes in the society in which we live, people will choose money and stuff over relationship. But
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that drew me to that story was just what you said, the friendship. You have beautiful, beautiful children, all of whom to me look just like you. Um,
Ah.
Chris and Damani, I know very personally because I've worked with them in the years, or more than 10 years that I've worked with Black Classic Press. But you also have another child among your children, Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is more in the spotlight than your other children. Because he is an author, he's a best-selling author. I mean, you know, as you know, you got the beautiful struggle. We were 8 years in power, Between the World and Me, and of course the Water Dancer, which was an Oprah Book Club pick recently. What are you most proud of about his work?
Probably that he never he doesn't leave the struggle that he was birthed into. you know. And I have to say, like, his work makes me proud, but I'm proud of him, Mischa,
Yeah.
because he has not, in all of the stuff that has come at him, at this point anyway, at this point, he has not lost his mind, you know?
Mm.
He's not lost his mind.
Mm-hmm.
He knows who he is. He knows who his community is.
Yes. He talks
He knows who he's
proudly.
writing for.
He talks so proudly about Baltimore and his
Yeah,
upbringing in Baltimore and the community he grew up in and the people who were in
yeah,
his life in Baltimore. He certainly is very intentional about letting us know
yeah,
who he is. You're absolutely right.
yeah. So I'm proud of that. And you know, I told you the story about Walter. Well, there's a similar story about Ta-Nehisi, you know?
Mm,
So for one of his books, I think it was 8 Years in Power, we actually traveled to France.
okay.
See, because when books are sold, publishers make money when they, you know, when they print books and they sell books like that. But
Mm-hmm.
they really make money when they sell the books like overseas and they sell the right for that book to be published, because that's clean money. You don't have to do anything else with that, you know? So his books, like other successful authors, they're sold all over the world. Ta-Nehisi got tired of just meeting white people around the world. One of the things he asked for, he said, "Where are the black people? You know, you got black people working for you? Are there black people I can talk to?" And most of them, of course, didn't. So there came this period in which one of his books, he wanted to make sure that black people, well, wherever, I mean, wherever it is, if black people can work in those companies, then he's going to ask for those black people to work in those companies and work on his books. They've been particularly successful in England doing that. In France, he kept meeting resistance to say there are no black people here that do that work, you know?
Mm.
And so that was not true. We knew that in France there was a company called Présence Africaine, who is actually the oldest black book publisher in the world right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's run by 3 black women. It's
Wow.
run by the grandmother, Madame Diop. Hmm?
Could you say the name again?
Présence Africaine,
Okay.
or in other words, the African presence.
Okay.
So the company is run, the grandmother, the mother, and there's the daughter. So
Wow.
yeah, so we knew that, and we knew that it was actually Présence Africaine that nurtured the fruit that came out of the Harlem Renaissance here. You see, because when the Renaissance died here, many of the brothers and sisters overseas were impacted and affected by the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
Africa was finding its way to independence. And that power and that desire was articulated by the Negritude Movement. The Negritude Movement found its base in Paris. Alain Diop was one of the main leaders of that, along with people like Sheikh Anta Diop.
Mm-hmm.
They were the main leaders of it, and Alain Diop founded Présence Africa as a publishing house that would publish the work of these emerging African intellectuals. Many of them would go on to become, like Leopold Senghor, to become the president of Senegal, Leon Diop Dimas, a Guadeloupean who taught for many years at Howard University. All of these people were tremendously significant. Frantz Fanon
Mm.
was a part of that same movement. Richard Wright, when he went to France, even though he was working for the CIA at the time, was a part of that movement. James Baldwin was affected by that movement.
Wow.
And the bookstore still stands. And the publishing house still stands. And those three Black women. So I'm saying all that to say we took, the bottom line is, following Walter's example, Ta-Nehisi took the book to them. Okay. And it was a matter, at that time, there was a white company that had 100,000 euros and they had no euros. And again, it was a matter of making sure that they had the experience of publishing a book on this level that we were able to do. So those things I'm proud of, you know, following in Walter's steps, the example that Walter, just the fact, the notion that I would have a child that would see his model. One time, he told me one day, he said, "Dad, why do you think I'm doing this? Why do you think I'm doing it?" It's because of Walter. It was Walter's model.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. And so my last question, I guess next to my last question is, I understand that you have to some degree turned the reins of VCP publishing side to Natalie and the digital side to Chris and Monty, and that you are working on another project that's keeping you busy these days.
Not quite.
Not quite yet.
Not quite. So Natalie is in fact our publisher.
Okay.
And she's really responsible for the work that comes out of Black Classic Press.
Okay.
The digital side, we tried to do an effort that would put Damani, Chris, and a group of other folks in charge of the printing. That did not work well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
okay.
I'm still there. I do less. They end up doing more.
Okay.
Now.
Okay.
But I'm still there and still engaged, even more than I would like to be. It's something that's called holding the space. Okay.
Very familiar with holding the space.
Yeah, I'm holding the space. I'm holding the space for whatever or whoever shows up to take on this work.
What do you see yourself doing? I know you said, I've read that you don't want to retire quite yet. What do you see yourself doing next?
Well, it's retire in the sense that I can't imagine not doing something. Do you understand? It's not like I don't want to move away from doing this. I could move away from this. I could move away very happily from doing what I'm doing today. I probably would write some. I probably would read a whole lot, you know, and explore all of the things that I'm so curious about. I could have a lot of fun just, playing with my curiosity about things in the world, all of the things that I don't know. I mean,
can we just pause right there? When you just said those three words, I don't know, we had an offline conversation earlier this week. And I said this to you then, and I'm going to say it again. And I think it's worth repeating publicly because I believe we are so challenged as a people with this. Saying, I don't know, right? You taught me that on Monday. You've taught me so many things, but on Monday, you taught me that it's okay to say, I don't know. And to not be moved by other people's opinions of you saying that, but more importantly, to not feel compelled to engage in conversation just for conversation's sake, right? And again, you are, as I said, you're so steady and sure of yourself. And as I said to you, the problem people have with saying I don't know is it makes people think less of you. It can make people think less of you. It can make people think you're not intelligent. But that really gave me a different kind of permission to remove myself from conversations that I don't have to be a part of, So I wanted to just thank you for that. When you just said those three words, it brought that back up for me. That it is okay to say, I don't know, when you really don't know. And it's okay to not participate in conversations, just to be participating in conversations.
Yeah, there's a lesson in that. It's the smartest thing in the world you can do. Say, I don't know. I mean, what could be smarter than that? You know, to say,
Mm.
I don't know. I just don't know. Because the truth is, most people don't know.
Mhm.
You know, they really, really don't know. I used to I used to be a part of National Book Foundation,
Mhm.
and I used to sit on the board of directors of that foundation. Now, the National Book Foundation gives the National Book Awards every year, which is the highest honor in America, American award that you can get for writing and your contribution to literature. So, you know, if we say in America, this is going to be a lot of white folks. And it certainly was at that time. Now, in the most recent years, for example, last year, I think Black people won all of the awards.
Mm.
I
How
think they
about
won all,
that?
I think they won all of
Amen.
the awards. But, you know, like if you look back, Ralph Ellison had won an award in the 40s or something, and then no Black folks
Mm.
had won the National Book Award. It was one of those things. Anyway, I used to sit in that room and I used to talk to those people, and they would say, well, you know, it's just like Hemingway and his whatever book it is. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And if somebody asked me, I would say, well, no, I've never read that.
Right,
You know,
right,
I've never read that. I don't know. I don't know that, you know?
right.
And here was the deal, and I've sat on other boards like that too. Here's the deal. I knew that I didn't know that book, but I also knew that no one on that board could hold a candle to me when it came to Black books. They didn't know what I knew.
Mm. How about that?
You see, they did not know and still don't know
Mm-hmm.
what I know.
Mm.
And it was inside of that knowledge that there was this comfort. We know what we know.
Yeah.
We know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And I think, as I told you, one of the things you'll notice about Ta-Nehisi, if you look at his lectures and if you look at the time, even the way, even the way, I would argue, even the way that most often he sits on stage, most often he's not at the lectern.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most often he's sitting down talking to
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And most often they're going to be talking about his work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, that's because he knows his work
Yeah.
and he can talk to you about his work. But when somebody starts talking about, well, what do you think the world is coming to? The first thing he's going to say is, why you ask me that? I don't know. You know, because he can speculate, but you can speculate, Mischa.
Right. Right.
but, but what have we done?
Right.
What have we done? How the hell do I know what's going to happen in the world?
Right.
Did anyone know? Did anyone know that a Black man being killed would cause demonstrations in 300 American cities and literally almost every country around the world in support of that? Did anyone know that?
Right.
No, 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 no.
That is
Anyway,
true.
anyway.
That is so true. My last question to you, I love you so much, Mr. Coates. My last
Thanks,
question
Don.
to you
Same.
is, I believe that gratitude just is everything, and it just fills our life and it makes us richer and it makes us just more focused and centered and grounded. And I know in my own life, the more I've learned to be grateful, the less I stress and worry, the less I'm sad. Um, what are you grateful for today?
Um, Mischa, I could go on and on and on, so I'm only going to be able to touch on a few of the
You can
things.
tell me just one thing.
No, 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 no. You can't ask me what am I grateful for, and I tell you one thing.
You can
That
tell,
ain't
you
even
know, I
possible.
can talk to you forever. You
That
can
ain't
tell
even
me one,
possible.
two, however many. I just want to know,
No, no,
what
that
are
ain't
you grateful for? What are
Yeah,
you?
I'm grateful for so many things
Yeah.
that I will not be able to name them all. But immediately, the first thing that comes to mind right now is I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit with you and be able to share this information with you and share this time with you. I'm grateful for the example and the boldness that you are, that you would leave this side of the country and go to the other side of the country and still keep pumping out that energy, that essence inside of you, that boldness inside of you. I'm grateful to have an opportunity to talk to you. I'm grateful for my life, which
Amen.
is a wonderful, wonderful life made much better because of my wife.
Mm.
I'm grateful for her, and she's downstairs waiting for me, and I'm gonna go down and spend some time with her. But I'm grateful that she comes to me at a period in my life that I can actually appreciate her, that
Amen.
I can actually know um, the value of this person in my life. I'm grateful for all of the opportunities that I've had, Mischa, to live my life in health, in wealth, and with well-being, to implement some of the visions that I've had. You
Mm.
know, I mean, just so I haven't implemented every vision because
Yeah.
I get lazy too, but I've implemented some of the visions.
Yeah.
And to be able to have a vision and to be able to act on it and see it in place for decades.
Yes. Yes.
Michelle, I'm grateful for the children that I have. I'm grateful for those children's mothers.
Yes.
You know, I have, and I have to count them. I have seven children, seven birth children, and two children by marriage. But there are four mothers to those seven children. Do you know, Michelle, we had differences at different times when those kids were coming up, but I never had a beef, a real beef with them. And I never created a situation in which they had a beef with each other.
And you all are
So
all
that now,
family. You
so that
are all
now,
family. Yes.
right now, right now, if we gather together as a family,
Yes.
as a
Yes.
family. I'm like, look, what touches me probably as much as anything about that, the parents of those women, the parents of the mothers of my children who I ended up knowing, the ones that I ended up knowing, the ones that were here, there was one perhaps that did not. There was one person that did not, but everybody else loved me.
Mm.
They loved me.
Mm.
And when I think about them now, I I like well up
Yeah.
because they love me. I think about Ta-Nehisi's mother, who didn't care for me much at all when I came to court her daughter.
Mm.
Who she had put through school, who she had this vision of. Here's this man. I had 5 kids when I came to court her daughter. 5 kids already. The idea that this guy would come with 5 kids without a way of sustaining and taking care of his mother, I'm taking care of her daughter, really freaked her out, and I understood it.
Mm.
Then I understand it now. But I'm gonna tell you something. When she died, right before she died, I was the last person with her, and I had prepared food for her, and I had taken that food to the hospital. And uh, right before she finished the food, we were talking, and she was saying, "Paul, it all worked out, didn't it? It all worked out." And I didn't know what she was talking about. And she said, "I said, what is that, Miss Ward?" She said, "The kids. And you, look at you. You're a great father. Look at those kids. Look how those kids, look how you got them all through school.
Mm.
Even Ta-Nehisi, who didn't finish school, look at him. He's a writer now. Paul, it all worked out. Look, I had that conversation with her. I left there humble. She fell into a coma. Right after that, she never spoke another word, and she died in another day or two. I'm grateful for Miss Waters. I'm grateful for the path that,
Mm.
I've been watched over, Mischa. And I believe I still have some more time to be watched over. And I'll try to do the best I can do here inside of that gratitude. I'll try to do the best I can do with it.
Yes. And you
So I
do.
have a lot to be grateful for.
Mm. You make me want to cry. Um, thank you. Thank you so much. This was everything I knew it would be.
Good.
Um, thank you for taking the time with me. Continue to stay safe and well. Love
I
you so
will.
much. And we will talk.
We'll talk. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Michelle, love you too.
Okay.
Michelle, take care, darling. I
All
said
right.
Michelle, but Michelle. Thank you, darling.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye bye.
Mhm.
That was my friend and mentor, Paul Coates. Um, I'm so full right now. I don't even know what to say other than until next time, stay inspired, stay well, stay encouraged. I love you. Look forward to talking to you next week. Bye bye.